At age 14, she was signed to a record deal by Sony Music Publishing, making her the youngest songwriter ever to be hired by them.
She's the only artist to release 4 consecutive albums that sold more than 1 million copies in their first week of release.
Earlier this year, she made history as the first artist to win the Grammy Award for Album of the Year 4 times.
According to Chartmasters, her music has been streamed more than 87 billion times.
She's performed more than 150 shows on her current tour, spread out over 5 continents.
She's expected to earn more than $2 billion from ticket sales alone. And if you add in merchandise, that total could top more than $4 billion. She, of course, is Taylor Swift. And in case you are that person who hasn't heard, she is a worldwide phenomenon. So the questions we're about to explore today are, why? How? And what has made Taylor Swift bigger than the Beatles, Michael Jackson, and U2 combined?
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Between the Tides podcast, where curiosity always meets discovery and where interesting topics always lead to fascinating discussions. My name is Erin, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Tim. Our guests today are Dr. Diana Rice and Dr. Britney Martinez. Dr. Rice is the Associate Dean of Faculty at Portage Learning and has her PhD in social psychology from Syracuse University. Dr. Britney Martinez is a biology and math professor at Portage Learning and holds her PhD in neuroscience from Penn State University. Even more important, both are certified Swifties.
T-Swizzle is in the hizzle, y'all, and this episode is ready to rock. So ladies,
are you ready for it?
All right, so I got questions here. I've got a lot of questions. So why don't we just start with this one? How did Taylor Swift become so important to each of you? So we'll start with Diana.
So I'm probably not the right person for the first question. I came to Taylor Swift as a mom driving teenagers around in a car. When they had aux, this is what we listened to. So that's my experience with Taylor Swift.
All right, Erin.
So I feel like I'm the same age as Taylor Swift, and also I grew up in the same area as she did in southeastern PA. So for me, I kind of feel connected to her in a certain type of way. And I also just grew up listening to her songs because I've been listening to her since I was about, I think I want to say 16. So that's like getting close to 20 years of my life. So I would say that's what made me kind of a Swiftie.
Britney, how about you?
I'm very similar to Erin. I'm around the same age as Taylor and grew up, she was very big when I was in high school. And the first time I ever saw her, I was watching, it was some country music awards. I don't remember which one it was, but she debuted Tim McGraw there in front of Tim McGraw. And that was the first time I ever saw her singing. And then I liked her since then. I also maybe know a little bit too much about pop culture, so I followed the entire Reputation era, Kanye drama things. So I've just, followed her throughout, kind of grew up with her sort of as well.
So most performers have fans, but it seems like Taylor Swift has followers. Now, would you guys consider yourselves to be Swifties? And if so, is there some bar that it takes to become a Swiftie?
I would consider myself Swiftie adjacent, but not actually a Swiftie. I know that cardigans can be bought. I don't own any. So I'm Swiftie adjacent.
I was thinking about branding myself for this episode as a Swiftie with a fully formed frontal lobe. Which maybe Britney can talk a little bit more about exactly what that means, but just being I'm a big fan, but not like a crazed fan. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoy watching from a little bit of a distance, I would say.
I agree with Erin. I am a fan of hers. I did not go to the Eras tour, so I don't know if I could fully call myself a Swiftie without having gone. I've watched it on Disney Plus, and I know her. I'm a fan of her songs and her albums, um, but I would agree with Aaron. I don't go all out for things with her.
Okay, so none of you have seen her in concert.
I have
I've
not.
been to the Reputation tour.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Well,
not the Eras, but I went to Reputation
tell
a
us
few
about
years
it,
ago.
Brittany. What was it like?
Well, I was telling Rachel earlier that when I actually went to that, I didn't know much of the Reputation album, actually, other than the big ones that like the most popular songs from that album. But we went. What was cool about it was I went kind of last minute with my sister-in-law and my best friend and my best friend's daughter. And so we were singing songs that my best friend's daughter was also singing. And so that was kind of cool that there were these moments where we were fans from high school of these songs that she's now also knows and sings. And so that was a cool kind of experience to have that there. And it was in the rain. So she performed the whole thing in the rain, which was uh, sort of a cool experience as well, but a little cold.
That's very cool. So you think back to all the great performers or great bands in history. So we can go to the Beatles, let's say Michael Jackson, Elvis, Madonna, U2. They all had about a decade of peak popularity, but Taylor Swift is approaching 20 years. So what do you attribute that to?
I would say a couple of things. I would say she still is really relevant. So I actually asked my daughter, who's a college freshman, and her friends, and they gave me permission to talk about their experiences. But they feel like she's very relevant, and the things that she sings about are things that they experience. And then just listening to Britney talk, I think she's tapped into this nostalgia, right? So it reminds you of your high school experiences, but you're able to share it with a new generation and it still feels fresh and like important to them. And it still feels like it describes their experience.
Yeah, I think Diana put it really nicely there. And I think also her relationship with her fans has like evolved over time too. So like when she was younger, it was much more like a traditional relationship, but now we have like all of these like fan theories and like people wanting to guess what's going on with Taylor. So I think that kind of plays into it too, as people, as kids are like growing up, they're like, it's almost like a FOMO thing of like they want to know what their friends are talking about. So like they want to know more about this person and then they eventually fall in love with the music as well.
I think she's super relevant and relatable. She's also like one of her gifts is songwriting. She's just a really, really good songwriter and knows how to put things that in a very relatable way. And so that when you hear the songs, you're like, I know exactly. She's explaining how I'm feeling, kind of a thing. And I think one thing that I've seen, especially with the Eras tour, the videos, like I said, I didn't attend, but I've seen many, 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 many videos of the Eras tour and people there. And I think that her fan base is like other ones in that but a little bit more intense in terms of community. People really feel like this sense of we're Swifties and they identify with that and really feel like this is like a sense of belonging in this community and they're very supportive and um, so that's I think something that also helps with the fan base as well.
That belonging is definitely something that my daughter and her friends talk about. Like they would identify as Swifties, so there's this social identity piece that we could talk about a little bit from a psychological perspective. But yeah, my daughter says I can go anywhere in the world and know that I'm going to have a connection to another person because there are Swifties everywhere in the world. So I feel connected broadly.
So from your daughter's standpoint, then what, again, I'm coming into this relatively new. What would you consider to be a Swiftie What does it take to be a Swiftie?
I don't know. Like, so my daughter has vinyl. My daughter has the sweaters. My daughter went to the Eras tour. My daughter reported that the Eras tour was better than her 10-day trip in Europe that ended the day before the Eras tour. Like, that to me is like, okay, she's committed. She's I mean, it's a self-identified kind of thing, and she's happy with that. Like, other people would be like, Swifties, but she's happy that that's part of her identity.
I've heard that like her concerts are very much like just a really like the feeling there is just so exciting. Like everyone there is like ready to have a good day and like knows that they're going to have a good day. Like I've heard the same thing about Beyonce concerts too. But I think they're kind of like in a similar tier. Obviously Taylor's fan base I think might be a little more involved than Beyonce's is in certain ways, but just that everyone's there and everyone's excited and it's just like you can feel that like reverberating through the stadium. And that must be really powerful because there's so many people at those concerts.
It's like a bonding experience with people that you've never met before, but you already know you have a common ground with. And, I think that humans, we seek out social connections and bonds with others. And I think that, like, right away, you already know that the whole arena is full of Swifties. So you already know that you have something in common with all these people and you can enjoy the time with those people, even though they're strangers, but you already have that kind of connection. So that's the experiences that I've heard others talk about, especially at the latest tour that she's been doing. So, I mean, even in Vienna, when they canceled the concert, there were videos of them going into the city and just hundreds of people there singing her songs and feeling that connection. Yeah.
Yeah, just another thing I was thinking about in terms of connection, like, so the whole friendship bracelet thing that happened as part of the Eras tour, like, my daughter was making bracelets and, yeah, she made them before she went to Europe, so she would make sure she had them ready to go. And she traded them with people, and that was, again, part of the experiences. I'm connected to you, and we have these visible markers that we're connected to each other.
Mm.
I actually have a question. I don't mean to derail, but like in terms of like maybe not so much these connections that might turn out to be real that you're making with the other fans, but like Taylor Swift is I think a good example of like a celebrity that has like these parasocial relationships with her fans.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess like where do those like parasocial relationships come from and are they like harmful?
That's yeah,
Go
because
ahead.
that's I think are we talking about that today?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
about to get to that. But go ahead. No, you can go.
Yeah,
Go
no,
ahead.
but yeah, you can explain it.
Yeah, what is
Yeah.
a parasocial relationship?
Do you want to take this, Brittany? Because you already mentioned parasocial relationships.
So parasocial relationships are sort of like when they're kind of one-sided connections. So people form what they perceive as like bonds with others. A lot of times it's celebrities, it could be uh athletes, it could be, whoever, fictional characters, it can even be like in a book. Um, but there's this like kind of sense of intimacy or relationship that the person would feel towards a celebrity like Taylor Swift as if they, have some kind of a relationship, even though, the celebrity doesn't. I mean, the celebrity knows that there's a relationship with the fan, but not like individually, right? So those parasocial relationships can form. In most cases, from what I've um, read on the subject, these are perfectly fine to have if they're normal to have, but then if they go towards more of a obsessive form or aberrant behaviors could become unhealthy sorts of connections in those ways.
Interesting. So someone told me earlier this week we were talking about Taylor Swift, and she said what she appreciates most about her is that she grinds in silence. And what she meant by that was that even though she has, I don't know how many millions of social media followers, she doesn't post often, but she's she's not tweeting every move, but she's behind the scenes making moves, and all of a sudden she'll pop up with an album or something else that brings everybody together. So, how do you guys feel about that? Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. Because I think, and maybe that goes back also, or ties into why people enjoy her so much is like she'll just suddenly re-release some of her old albums re-recorded. Like, we still don't know when Reputation, Taylor's version, is going to come out. So stuff like that, like I think it leads to like excitement. Um, so yeah, that would be my guess on that.
So I have watched one documentary like that she put out. Brittany, you're gonna have to tell me which one I watched because I feel like you would know more than I did. But my daughter was like, "You're watching this with me," and that grind and silence thing I think is real because she is such a hard worker and she's not telling you she's a hard worker. You just see the product at the end. So like watching her like write lyrics. And I know she has like a notebook that she carries with her all the time to just like jot down thoughts that might become something. Like she is always thinking about how this experience could lead to a connection, a song, a lyric. And so, yeah, I think she's an extremely hardworking, grinding in silence kind of gal.
She keeps people most certainly on their toes because you she has a game she kind of plays with her fans where I don't know where this started. I don't know what album it started on, but she started putting clues to things in album artwork and music videos. Her music videos, some of them are very symbolic and have little subtle things here and there that mean things to the fans. Um, and so when she started re-releasing her Taylor versions of albums, she would fans started to try to decode when things were going to be released, and it became a pretty big phenomenon that, especially with Reputation, she hasn't announced it yet. So there are always theories swirling of when she's going to drop it. And then when they thought she was going to drop it, she brought out Tortured Poets Department, and nobody saw that coming. Like she keeps people on their toes and she keeps surprising fans. And I think that they love it and they go crazy when she does announce her new move. And like Aaron and Diana said, she does this all behind the scenes. You don't even know while she's, recording Taylor's version, she's also recording an entire new album. So that, was not really thought to be on the radar. So, yeah.
So, on that same note, Tree Payne is her publicist, and I think she's probably known as the best in the business. So, we know a lot about Taylor's relationships, or at least some, but not much else. So, do you think that's a Tree Payne thing, or how does that work? Like, why don't we know more about her?
That's a tough question to answer, I think. Um, I guess I would attribute it to a publicist because I assume that that's what they get paid for, is like helping an artist show the pieces of their life that they want to showcase versus the things they want to keep to themselves. Um, yeah, I know she's like really good at her job though.
I think they're very intentional of what is released and what is also kind of left to fan speculation for their kind of enjoyment sometimes. And then she kind of sometimes then confirms what fans thought the whole time, showing up to a Chiefs game or something when there's been a million articles of what is she going to show up this weekend, what is she wearing, what she's talking to Travis's dad, all these things. So I think I think they're very intentional of what type of information is released when it's released, and things like that. They're very good at it. And I do have to say, I think she is just very brilliant in terms of those things and how she interacts with her fans and relates to her fans and gains new fans. So I think they're very good at that, relating to their fans and keeping engagement with the fan base.
Yeah, it's almost a weird dichotomy that she is probably the most famous person in the world right now, I would argue, yet we really don't know a lot about her. And I think that probably keeps the appeal going, that you just want to keep knowing more and more about this person, but you have to work for it if you want to get that. So, so on that note, then, at some point, many famous performers encounter a backlash, whether they made a poor album, a relationship decision, got into some trouble, whatever it is. How do you think she's avoided that? I mean, this is 2 decades now, 20 years. What is different about her?
I think what Brittany said about the intentionality is like a really large piece of that. Cause like I've only seen clips of the documentary, but I do remember a clip of like Taylor and her mom talking about like even just a portion of the concert of like her mom saying, I wouldn't want to take my 8-year-old to this. So I think that like there's a lot of just intentional consideration of like how she's presenting herself on the stage versus in an interview and things like that. Like I think the intentionality is a huge piece to that.
So I would say another thing, there has been backlash, right? So when she started talking about her own political views and not being silent about that, there definitely was backlash, but then she makes it into music. And so that kind of takes the sting out of it, right? Like if okay, go for me and I will use it and I will make $1 million. Go for it. I like totally admire that about her.
I think that's one of her biggest skills is that anytime, I mean, you know, in the public eye, you're going to get negative comments here, there, and everywhere. But she is incredibly good at taking that negativity and capitalizing on it. That whole thing that happened with Kanye and Kim, basically, you know, she felt like she was being made to be the bad guy in that situation, and she got a lot of hate for that, and she made reputation because of that, and she kinda went away for a bit before that, and then all of a sudden comes back with that album, and all of a sudden comes back, and she's kinda better than ever at that point, and took that situation that tried to make her look bad and totally, like, spun it on its head. And so I think she's done like, she has a pattern of doing that continuously over and over again and kinda saying, like, "If you can say whatever you want, but I'm gonna make an album about it or make a song about it." I mean, even the newest song, "I Can Do It With a Broken Heart" is all about, like, taking a bad situation she's going through and turning it on its head, sort of, and, um, making millions of dollars as a result of it.
So her last relationship was relatively quiet, and this one is very public with Travis Kelce. Do you think there could be any career issues with this thing if it goes bad?
I don't know, I just heart them.
I know.
I hope
It's
it doesn't
like
go bad.
it's
Yeah.
so wholesome because it's like seeing like the 2 popular kids from your school that everyone likes start dating. Like it makes that's how I felt. And I'm also a really big NFL fan. So like seeing that happen was like a very exciting moment. I'm in an all girls fantasy football league and we were all texting because it was like a year ago this week that she showed up to the first game and we were all like, this is our Super Bowl. So it was giving us a lot of joy. But I think like I don't. I think people like the relationship so much they would be sad to see it go, but I don't know if. I guess it just depends on how it's perceived that it ends and how it's presented in the media.
So what if Travis
Yeah.
Kelce scores the winning touchdown against the Eagles in the Super Bowl?
That already kind of happened 2 years ago when the Chiefs played the Eagles. But I would still be okay as an Eagles fan. But and now everyone gets to see how awesome Jason and Travis, or I'm sorry, Jason and Kylie Kelsey are too.
Yeah.
So I've been enjoying kind of just like all of this light shining on the Kelsey family because I think they're a really great family as well.
Yeah, I agree. I love Jason and Kelsey too. Yeah. And I think when Taylor first started going to the games, I know she got kind of a lot of um, even backlash for attending because people were saying, like, we want get back to football. But what I did think was cool about that was that there was a lot of stories I heard and, videos and things about um, now you had uh, spouses watching the game together because she was there and she was watching the football game, and so it became kind of even more of a bonding experience where um kind of both parties in the relationship were then invested in this, and it was kind of more exciting to kind of do that together rather than not. So I thought that that was cool, that it was a way for people then to even bond kind of further together, even though they have separate reasons for liking this event, that they could come together even more with her, being there and what she's wearing and who she's talking to and who's with her and things like that. So
Yeah,
I thought that that was cool.
I've seen videos of like little girls and their dads
Yeah.
too watching football, which is like really wholesome because
Yeah.
like to bring them to the table and like have a steak to watch. Like you have to see Taylor, but then also have dad explain like what a 4th and 1 is, is really
Right.
cool.
Right. Yeah.
So I will let you take this in any direction you want to go. But does her command over her audience remind you of anyone else in history, in any sphere?
When I think about other celebrities, I think it seems different. Like what she's doing seems different. So like when I think of like, yeah, the U2, like 80s hair bands, that's like my generation. Fans were fans, but it was kind of like, okay, well, that's part of my life. Whereas I feel like for at least my daughter and her friends, the way they talk about it, she's helping them create meaning and like see the meaning in their lives. So I'm having this experience, but here's how it fits into something different or a bigger story. So I think, I'm sure there are similarities, but for me, it seems like what she's doing is a little bit different.
Yeah, I struggle to think of someone that it makes sense with. Like because I do enjoy like older music and I like learning about like the dynamics of like fandoms back then. Like I really enjoyed learning about like Beatlemania and stuff. But it seems like the biggest difference is just like the amount of content that like if you're a Swiftie you have available to you to engage with because it's never ending. Whereas like when I was a kid, I loved the Spice Girls. I was like 6 and like which we can debate about with my parents. Should I have been listening to that? But that's a different podcast. But like but at the end of the day, like if I were to go and like try to learn more about the Spice Girls, all I would see would be like the special on TV that week or like maybe a movie that I could watch about them. But
Did you watch Spice World?
duh. It's not on any streaming services. But I think that yeah, like I just think I wonder if that is a piece of it is like because you can immerse yourself in this world in a different way than it was when like even 30 20 30 years ago like you didn't have such access or like to the celebrity or content produced about a celebrity.
Yeah. And I think another thing about her that's I don't know, a little bit more unique also to many of our experiences. And we've already mentioned this, but she transcends different generations, mothers and daughters going together to concerts, and um, that we kind of, many of us, especially like millennials, grew up with her kind of at the same time. So what she was going through in her personal life we were going through in our personal lives. And so she would sing about it. And so we could, relate to those similar experiences right along with her. And I mean, even now, her songs are relatable from the very beginning of her career. So I think that's a really interesting piece there as well, is that she kind of has continued to reach audiences and people together. And she definitely has this, um, like Diana mentioned, this nostalgic feel for many people, and this many, not all of them, but a lot of her songs are very um optimistic, and they are hopeful, and they, so I think, again, not all of them, but I think a good bit of them are, and so that gives, um I think she can bring joy in that way to people experiencing those. So,
Yeah, it's there's another little piece to that, just the nostalgia piece. Like when I listen to bands that were, popular and active when I was in high school, it's more of a, oh, I remember that time and I wonder what they're doing now. But that's not the same experience that people have with Taylor Swift because they know what she's doing now because she's still actively involved in creating.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And I think the Eras tour was just brilliant, where you had fans who grew up with her, as Aaron said, around the same age, Britney. But then now they're taking their kids to these concerts, so they're introduced now to her newer music, but their parents are introducing them to the older albums. One of my favorite memories, I told Aaron this, is driving my daughter and her friends around to softball games and basketball games when the Red album came out, and not even listening to that album, but listening to them sing the
Sing the
songs in the
album.
back seat. And it just, I still think about it today and it brings me great joy. But now I see that's going to continue because probably they're going to do that with their kids. And it just becomes this beautiful circle where this thing can go for who knows how long. But I just think this tour in general, the Eras, was just brilliant on her part, and she's earned everything that's come her way for sure. So
mhm.
So one of the other questions we had is there something different that happens to someone's brain when they're this like into an artist? Like when they're constructing fan theories or spending so much time consuming the media that like surrounds this person, or like as the youth call it, the lore.
The Lord. Brittany, you want to talk about neuroplasticity?
Yes. So, anytime we learn new information and anytime we form new bonds or relationships, new connections are forming in our brain between those neurons. And the more we revisit those things over and over again, the stronger those connections get. Um, from what I've read, they've done research, especially recently, with the rise of social media and things like that. They've been doing a lot of, I think, more work with understanding what's going on in the brain with parasocial relationships and also with things like FOMO, like what is this, understanding what's happening in the mind, in the brain when you um, want these things. And they've highlighted that they're still kind of figuring out what regions of the brain are kind of responsible, and it does seem like it kind of depends on um the nature of the relationship or the perception. But there's been discussions about the reward network in the brain having to do with this. So you have a network in the brain that basically activates anytime you feel any sort of pleasure or reward. So anything positive that happens to you, you have a network in the brain of regions that primarily release dopamine to help. And that's kind of you want to engage in those things more because they are rewarding. So that definitely has a role here, or is thought to have a role in a lot of these kinds of perceptions and seeming bonds that are being formed. Um, Certainly, the frontal lobe probably has roles here. With this is involved in kind of executive functions, decision makings, and things like that. Also, just your sense of self, like who you are, who the celebrity is, like who Taylor is, and then understanding that dynamic there. And also that sense of belonging with other people in the community, especially with other Swifties. It's a very strong fan base, and it serves as a sense of community for others and a sense of identity. Like, I know I'm connected to these other people in that way, and we have this community that I can rely on and be a part of. And so I think that really helps out with feelings of loneliness, feelings of isolation that others might be feeling. So that's kind of some of the discussions that have come out around this.
Do you think there's a point where this type of fandom can morph into something more dangerous, like with
I do
especially?
think that not necessarily with specifically with Taylor, but I know that there's been instances. I think there has been. I don't remember exactly what the um, context were, but I know celebrities, uh, encounter stalkers and people that become kind of go into that um, aberrant behaviors where it becomes more obsessive like things. Um, and they kind of maybe act on those obsessions more often. So I think in that way it can be damaging, but also you see this not just with Taylor, but with many different fandoms. Um, I think online sometimes it can be pretty rough if you give any other opinion. And again, not just with Taylor, this has happened with different fandoms, different celebrities. I know Selena Gomez has dealt with this where her fans or other fans of celebrities may uh, not always be nice to other fans in different ways. So I think sometimes that is where we can approach the um, unhealthy kind of behaviors with that.
So we've been talking a lot about our brains as fans, as Swifties. Can we talk for a moment about her brain? That think about this: millions and millions of people around the world not only enjoy her music, but they idolize her. At what point can someone just be crushed by that type of fandom? And what advice would you give to her?
I must say, it takes a special person to have that level of fame and that level of scrutiny and that level of um, eyes on her. And she seems, I mean, we don't see a lot behind the scenes, of other celebrities. And um, even with documentaries, they're only letting you see what, you want them to see. Um, but I think she seems to be very resilient to that negative any negative impact that she gets. And um I do think she is gifted, and maybe a lot of celebrities are gifted in that way to be able to be resilient against that level of um negative attention that they probably are getting. So, and I'm sure that that impacts many her mental health and many celebrities mental health. um but they also, I think, have access to resources that mm, maybe other people don't exactly have as well to help with that.
Yeah, I think another side of that, not just like resilience toward the negative, but also resilience toward the positive, right? So Brittany's mentioning the reward pathway in our brains that functions on and releases dopamine. That's like the happy juice in your brain. So she's getting that when she's in concerts, but how does she disengage from that and find value and worth in other settings? And like, I know she's really close with her mom, so I assume her mom is also helping her say, this isn't the only part of your life. This is not the only value that you have, being able to create content for others. So like, there's got to be some resiliency there and groundedness there to think about even how to deal with the positive.
So, a serious question. Knowing what you know about her, would you trade places with her?
0% chance.
Why not?
Never in a million
Yeah.
years.
I am a psychologist who doesn't actually like people that much. So to have that many people in my
Another
space
podcast.
all the time, I would just not enjoy that. It just would not be enjoyable to me.
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar camp just because like she's usually so gracious when she sees fans and like um I just feel like that's a very special person that has the capability to kind of always be like on in that sense.
Yeah.
I think that would be really too much for me.
Yeah.
I would never be able to handle that level of attention. I already have anxiety about normal things like sending emails, so I can't even imagine that much attention and people talking. I couldn't handle it. So, no, thank you. I will just watch her
Yes.
All right, so let's put on our futuristic glasses for a second. Where do you see Taylor Swift in 15 years?
doing the same thing she's doing now, but married
Yeah.
to Travis Kelce.
I wonder if she's going to take a break at some point, like to just kind of enjoy life a little bit, because she's kind of been nonstop, except for like those random, like right before Reputation and other things.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there will be like maybe just like a break.
Mm.
I'm not sure, because it also seems like it's such a big part of her as a person that
Mhm.
like maybe it's hard for her to turn that piece off.
Mhm.
But I wonder if she'll have a break at some point.
Mhm.
But I still think she'll be releasing new content and music.
I could definitely see her selling out concerts still in 10, 15 years. Just
And
like
still
now.
with new stuff, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
like several years ago my husband and I went to a Billy Joel concert and he sold out Pittsburgh. He sold out the stadium. But it was all things I knew all of the words to.
Mhm.
So like I feel like she's still going to be creating.
Mhm.
And I'm not describing Billy Joel as a sellout. Like I love his music, but like just the newness of it.
Yeah.
All right, before we wrap up for today, let's have a little fun with some lightning round.
Mm.
Okay. Now, you don't have to answer these quickly, but I will ask them that way. So, Aaron, first three Taylor Swift songs that pop in your head.
Evermore, Peace, and Lover.
Brittany.
Are you ready for it? I Can Do It With Broken Heart and Love Story.
Yeah, so I do it with a broken heart. And like seriously, I listen when my daughter is playing it, so I don't know the names of the songs, but the one where everybody's a sexy baby and I'm the monster on the hill.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Anti-hero.
Anti-hero, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But that line just makes me think about high school, like because I just felt like that.
Yes.
So yeah.
Best overall album.
I gotta say the newest one. I'm a lyrics person, and like I joked that it reverse healed me and undid it. So that would be the Tortured Poets Department for me, like the anthology.
Reputation's my favorite of her albums.
Why, Brittany?
I don't know. It was just, I don't know if it was because I went there, but actually, I have to say that when I went there, I didn't know the album very well. And I felt like when she brought out Midnights, I was like, you know what? I haven't listened to Evermore and Folklore very much yet. So then I started listening back through the albums, all of them. And I just really love many of the songs on Reputation. And my boys like to sing some of the Reputation songs. So, and they're, 8 and 7, and they like those in 1989. So that's kind of fun too, to be able to do that with them.
I'm trying to think what has gotten the most play in our house. It was probably Midnights.
What lyric of hers do you recite most often?
Do I have to go first this time?
Other than Shake It Off. That's too easy.
Oh.
It's lyrics from Anti-Hero for me.
Mhm.
Like that just resonates with me.
I'll stand directly in the. I'll look directly in the sun, but never
in a mirror.
Yeah.
So good.
Oh,
that
that's a good one. Oh man, I don't know. Oh. All I can think of is draw the cat eye sharp enough to kill the man. They're all just like, I can't think of any right now, but they're really good. I feel like I just randomly get her songs stuck in my head. Oh, Cruel Summer. That gets stuck in my head a lot.
Yeah.
the bridge to that.
Yeah.
So
The bridge, I also like could rank her bridges too, probably, if you like asked me to do that, because that's probably one of my, like, I'm Gonna Get You Back is one of my favorite bridges she's ever written. I think it's like up there and like, it's just the best. I could sing it so many times. I love it so much. Um, I'm like 38 weeks pregnant right now, and the baby is going to be. I told my husband the baby is going to end up being a Swiftie. He's like, it's just what I've been listening to in the car lately. Like, not for any specific reason, just but yeah, nonstop.
mhm.
Which boyfriend has been your favorite?
Travis.
Hands down, Travis.
Travis.
Yeah.
Why?
He's like a real human.
Mhm.
Like, he's genuine. He shot his shot. Like, how can you not respect and love
know.
that man?
Yeah.
Like, he made the friendship bracelet for her, and
yeah, you
it's
just
so
gotta love
cute.
that. Yeah.
And there's even like clips of her saying that like guys didn't do anything to like meet her or like get to know her,
Yeah.
like from when she's much younger. But it's just kind of like seeing that clipped with like Travis saying, well, I made my friendship bracelet with my number on it. Like, it's just so cute.
Yeah.
Least favorite boyfriend?
I think a lot of people say Jake Gyllenhaal.
But he gave us All Too Well, the 10-minute version.
That's true. That is true. Oh, I don't know.
I don't feel like I knew enough about, like, I listened to Taylor's music a lot back when she was like dating Jake Gyllenhaal, but like I didn't know anything about Taylor then. Like, as I didn't follow her life, so I don't feel like equipped enough to like say. So I guess the only other person I really have like I could like answer about would be I don't really, in comparison to her, what her relationship with Joe looks like to us. I guess Joe would be my least favorite.
Yeah. I don't think I know enough about the other things, but I would say the same as Aaron.
For 10 points, and each of you has to take one of these. Name her 3 cats.
Olivia Benson.
I know she has cats.
Meredith.
Yeah.
Gray. Meredith. Whatever from. Yeah, Meredith.
I know they're like the fancy cats. They have like the interesting facial faces. I don't know what to call it in a cat.
I'm like really mortified because my daughter is gonna be like, you failed.
Please do not cut
mother.
this. This has to stay.
Yeah, cut this, please.
I'll give you a hint.
Oh my gosh, I can't think
Brad
of it.
Pitt played in a movie where he aged
Benjamin
backward.
Button.
Benjamin Button. There you go.
Oh, I actually didn't know that one. I just knew Olivia and Meredith.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Well, we just heard, we got a report here. We got some breaking news as we do this podcast that in addition to talking about Taylor Swift, today is another special day because it is the birthday of Aaron Omikes.
Yay!
Thank you.
Aww. Happy
no.
birthday to you.
Cha cha cha.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Aaron. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm sorry I didn't sing that as well as Taylor would have.
Thank you.
Good. Well, that'll about do it today. Unless we have any final thoughts, we enjoyed this podcast immensely. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And we have one more message for all the Swifties out there that you look like Taylor Swift in this light, and we're loving it. So keep on
Aw.
shining your light.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.